Hi, I'm Craig Lewis and welcome to the Running Tales podcast. If you don't know what this is all about by now, have a listen to the intro that doesn't include me at all and that Michelle says should be changed because she's now been running for far more than 10 years.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lewis. 10 years ago, you'd have been lucky to see me run to the end of the road. These days, running is second nature to me. From marathons to park runs to putting my own running group through their paces. You'll often see me in suitably loud attire, getting ready to pound the pavements. And here's a secret, if I can do it, you can too. There's so many wonderful and inspiring stories in the world of running. And not just running, some of my favourite tales involve those who take to their wheelchairs, bikes or simply their own trusty feet in an attempt to get fitter, faster or just have some fun. In this podcast, I'm going to be in conversation with some of the most inspiring and fascinating of these people. Remember, it's your time, your speed, your way. The only person you need to keep up with is yourself.
In modern life, we strive for nice things, the nice car, the nice home, clothes, the watch, you name it. It's all superficial. Things that will get fought over when you die, your possessions, your monetary value, has no real life value. In days of early tribes, children would reach a certain age where they'd go off with their father or grandfather and return an adult. What happened on those journeys opened their minds. They'd learn how to survive. Most likely, they would experience near death. They'd push their bodies to new limits and learn the land they live on and off. The difference with modern life is comfort. I sit here on a sofa with a roof over my head, cat curled up next to me and the heating on. It's all comfort. I want to go to the shops. Get in the car. I need to cook food. Turn on the oven. It's all comfort. Endurance sport holds little of the old encased way in a new way of living and a sport. That's not my story. Those are the words of Ben Davies. He's an ultra runner. That's his amazing blog. Ben has just completed the 145-mile Grand Union Ultra, and they added an extra 4 miles on in diversions because apparently 145 wasn't enough. He believes in the power of talking and the power of running. But I started off by asking him, what is it like to run 149 miles?
That's a good question, actually. Mentally tough. It felt a lot easier on the body. That's the second time I've given that run a go. Last year I made 93 miles and my legs and everything were just absolutely destroyed. I just wasn't ready for it at all. But yeah, this year was completely different. Everything just felt better. But I think the build up to the run, I kept saying, what's an extra 4 miles? Because there were some diversions. And then when we actually got into the zone of those extra 4 miles, I just wanted it. I just wanted out. I just wanted to be done. So mentally it was really hard. But other than that, I really enjoy the long runs, like just being out for that duration of time. So the thought of being out there for that long doesn't really bother me. But yeah, being able to run that far is just brilliant there.
And just so people know, how long did it take you to do that run? How long were you out there for?
I think it was just under 37 and a half hours. Yeah, last year, if I had finished, I was on for a 44-hour finish. So the difference was it was huge.
And did that come down to like training a bit harder or just feeling better on the day?
Yeah, a lot more training. Last year in the build up to the run, I developed a Morton's neuroma in my foot, which that had me off my feet for a couple of months, and then injections and stuff I had to go through. So I was really out of it, and my wife was going mad at me because I was like, "Yeah, I'll still give it a go. Let's have a crack at it." And I don't think I'd ran for 2 months before the start of the race.
Oh, that's the sort of thing I do ahead of a 10K, but I think you can get away with it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you can. It was it was a completely different experience this year. Like my training up to race day was a lot different. Completed a month of half marathons and some of the back to my longer runs every weekend, and found out that I can pretty much link where I live on the canal to Birmingham, Wolverhampton, to everywhere. So it was just like every training run was just on the canals getting ready for it.
No, it's quite a nice route to run along canal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I also found one thing I found really interesting actually, because I've sort of experienced this myself and heard it from other runners, was a post you put up after the run saying, after the initial high, that there was a down that followed, and I think runners maybe understand that, but people who aren't runners don't get that sort of crash that you can get after a race.
Yeah, it was. I get quite bad, like pre-race blues. So, like in the build-up, especially to big runs, where I'm trying not to do as much and trying to rest as much as I can. I end up like the stress of that builds up more than the actual race itself. So thinking like, have I trained enough? Can I do more? Can I fit any more in? That kind of stuff just leads to more stress and everything. But after this race, yeah, I wasn't expecting it this time because of finishing it. Last year, I had 3 days where I was just really in the pits. I was really in a bad way after it because of DNF'd, and it was my first DNF. But this year, I just wasn't expecting it. And then, yeah, the day before yesterday, I think it was, and I was so down in the dumps, like just all that training, all that, you know, all the planning and preparation and everything. And it was over in 37 hours. It was done.
I think there's two things that sort of hit me there. I mean, it is obviously that sort of, oh God, that huge challenge that I've spent so long building up to is over. And the second thing is you sort of categorizing last year's effort as a failure when you've run 90 odd miles, I think you said, which is just unbelievable. And most other people wouldn't even think of doing that.
Yeah, I had to really sit on that one, and because I'd gone over the race so many times in my head, I'd completed it so many times in my head. I have this like weird obsession with, I love to learn the routes, but without running them. So I'm like Google Street View, everything, just going through. So I knew the whole course, like, and the layout, just, by memory. And I'd completed the race like 15, 16 times over on the lead up to the race. And then on the day when I actually had to pull out, that completely destroyed me. So to me at the time, it was a failure, but it was my first big learning curve into, actually, I really do love running.
And actually, I mean, that's a good way to move on to kind of your running journey, as it were, because I don't, from looking at your blog, if I've got this right, you've not been someone who's been running since school your whole life, sort of thing. Running is fairly new to you. So do you want to try and maybe, I know there's quite a story behind this, but sort of explain to people how you came to start running and what's behind your story?
Yeah, so I've been running, this year's my third year in running. So yeah, there's been a few things like just trying to mark my third year in running. So the Grand Union was a brilliant one. I'm kind of fat kid from school. Like school days were like really tough. A lot of home issues and whatnot growing up. There's a lot of difficulties that side of things that just led to like huge obesity and like being bullied and whatnot through school. So I was never a sporty kid at all. Like, I was the one that was fake signing my mum's signature on a note to get out of PE and whatnot. But yeah, it kind of built up to a couple of years ago, and my niece passed away. My sister's little girl, she passed away at 18 months old. She was born with a few complications and whatnot around her bowels and her liver and that. But yeah, she passed away, and I was in a real bad place, like mentally. I've never been like that ever before. I just couldn't get out of it. I used to do a lot of rock climbing, and I was training. I was trying to do everything I could, and I just couldn't get out of this funk that I was in. And a friend of mine I hadn't seen in ages, and he stopped me on the car park to the climbing centre, and he gave me the link to David Goggins' book, "It Can't Hurt Me." And yeah, I started listening to that straight away. And then I'd never even heard of ultra running. I thought the furthest anyone ever ran was a marathon, and like never heard of anything else. And yeah, so it opened my eyes to a whole different world. And I think within that week, my wife had decided to do a little fundraising event for the Children's Hospital and the ward that my niece was on for pretty much her whole life. And through the winter, she was running at a gym, just running on treadmills and stuff. And then she started wanting to go out more on the streets and stuff, but wanted some company. And I couldn't think of anything worse than just running around the streets of the village where we live. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And then I don't know why, but a couple of weeks in, and I was like, I need something to really have a look at. And then I just started Googling ultra marathons and big ultra marathons in the UK. And I think at this point I'd been running with my wife a couple of months, and I found the Grand Union Ultra, and I was like, man, that sounds really good. Like, that's the kind of running that I want to do. Like, I don't want to go fast. I don't want to go like, I'm not all about training and numbers and all that kind of stuff. And I was reading, and the more you read, the more you find the community to the ultra world, the more you start seeing that they're actually just kind of a different breed of runner.
Yeah.
They're just there to help each other out and get through and, kind of take themselves to different places. And that straight away, that just hit it for me. But at that time, the sign up, the registration to the Grand Union was up. So I was like, heck, I'm signing up. Luckily, I didn't get through. I didn't get through on my first one because it's balloted. But yeah, and then so I signed up again the year after and went through it again. But it means a lot to me, this race does. It really does.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like it's obviously helped you to overcome that sort of trauma and that loss, or at least to confront it. I mean, I'm fascinated by going from nothing to ultra and really loving that, because most people, we go out, we do that 5K, we might do a 10, and then we think, oh, I can do a half and I can do a marathon, and the crazier amongst us go on and do things like an ultra. But you've kind of missed all that bit in the middle out.
Yeah, my head just couldn't focus on any of the smaller stuff. So I did a 10K run with my wife, an official 10K race with my wife, because she wanted some company on it. And then we won some places through an old running club that we were with to a different 10K. I've still not done an official marathon. And I think it was a couple of months ago, I did my first official half marathon. But other than that, it's literally just been ultras. I don't even know how many ultras I've done now.
Oh, well, I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. If I can, I did want to return quickly to some of the issues you've had and the mental health problems. Reading your blog, you mentioned a bit of childhood trauma there, and it's pretty serious stuff. It's up to you how much you want to go into this, but I know there was some issues with your father, I think, and you mentioned the bullying you had at school for being overweight, and that turned into mental health problems with food as well.
My father was like, that's a weird one, really, because to like my friends and stuff when I was growing up, like, he was this really charismatic, really outgoing sort of person, but behind closed doors, he was completely something else. I was in and around music growing up, so like anytime we were playing like concerts and stuff, he'd drive us there. He'd be like the one coming for a drink and stuff to support us. But then, behind closed doors, if he'd had a bad day or whatever, it was things being thrown, or there was certain things I can remember of when I was younger. And God, I must have only been about 6, but like being away on holiday down in Cornwall, and he tried to commit suicide in the hotel that we were in. And like me and my elder brother were the ones that found him. And it's just little things like that, just, but I've kind of learned to take those things and like turn them more into like a positive, like use them as like a strength rather than a weakness. My older brother went the opposite kind of way. He kind of finds a lot of comfort in the kind of victim-y kind of mentality. Like we both had it crap, and we were both each other's sort of rock, but we kind of grew apart as we've got older, because of how our minds have gone. So whereas I try and talk about and talk to people and use what I've been through and what I've seen to communicate with other people and let people know that there are people out there that have been through really bad stuff, but they use that in a positive way and use it to actually say, look, you can talk. There are people here to listen to you. And, there's more people out there than you think that, that have struggled. And a lot of the feelings and stuff and emotions that we feel around those subjects are the same, just with a different, added to a different story.
Yeah, and kind of, I guess, a different solution. It seems as well, and I mean, just to explain to people, I know that you talked about then your father trying to commit suicide, but he was also abusive towards yourself as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was abusive, mainly towards my mother. Like she had a really bad time with him, because one minute he was the most loving person in the world, and then next minute he was like this absolute ferocious beast. Sometimes we'd see completely different sides of him. Other times, I mean, there's all certain little bits that will always spring back to, the bad days. So like even just things in the morning, whereas like, I don't know if you've got kids, but if you've got kids, and they can be a handful in the morning, trying to get them ready for school and their breakfast, and you're trying to get ready for work. But I remember the one day he just punched me right around the temple, like right around the side of the head. And I learned at a later date that I was actually sent to school with concussion and like just a ringing headache. And I ended up throwing up it's only year 3, but yeah, I ended up throwing up in the toilets at school. And then my mum had to come and get me. Yeah, and like times where my mum had tried to leave my dad a few times, and he'd turn up at the door, he'd turn up at my nan's house. And I mean, my nan was like, we spent a lot of our childhood at my nan's growing up. Interestingly, we were going through old photographs only last weekend, or the weekend before. Yeah, the weekend before last. And the amount of times that we were at my nan's growing up was just, I completely forgot just how much time we spent there.
It's a bit of a sanctuary, I suppose, but
yeah, it still is as well. Like going there actually feels like home.
Well, that's fantastic that you've got somewhere that sort of feels like that. And obviously, I think with running, if I'm correct, you've got something now which helps you to, I don't know if deal with the right word, you tell me, to deal with those issues and to be able to be happy in yourself. And I know that the talking idea around it is a really big thing for you.
Yeah, when I started running, like I really didn't even think of it, like, this side of things. I was like, oh, it's a bit of a release. It'll just, if I've had a bad day, whatever, I can go out there and completely beat myself up and come home and I'm, feeling good. Or I can just go out just to put some music on and, the sun's out and just have a nice time. But then I kind of found that the more I was running like that, the more I was just coming home and everything was just, everything was still the same. I hadn't dealt with anything. I just, for that moment, that short moment in time, I felt a bit better. But then it was the actual talking, and when we were out running, talking about things, that actually started to go, you know what, this is what doing this kind of thing, this is what running's all about. Communicating with people and, not just putting yourself to one side for a minute just to enjoy being outside, but to take yourself and all your thoughts with you and talk them over.
Yeah, and I guess that fits in with why ultra running is something that appeals to you. I mean, smashing around a track doing a 5K, you don't get too much chance to have a chat, do you?
No, not at all. Yeah, the amount of people that you end up meeting and talking to on an ultra, and it's those breakdowns of the emotions, because how long you've been out, and how everyone's bodies like are different. Some people's, like, their emotions go first, some people's bodies go first, but a lot of the time you just find people are a lot more open and a lot more honest with you when you talk to them, when they've been out for such a long time. That's the side of the ultra world that really draws me in.
Is there a certain distance where you can see people will start to open up? We've reached 40 miles. That's it. I'm gonna find your life story out.
Yeah, I'd say it's about 50 miles. Like, and then you can kind of start seeing the little breakdowns in your normal runners. I don't know what your top athletes are like, but they're probably cool as a cucumber all the way to the finish. But yeah, like, I just find it when people are mentally set on, okay, I'm going to be out for 7, 8, 9 hours or whatever running, people are a lot more easy to just go, someone runs past you, you say hello, and all of a sudden you're best friends. Exactly, everything about each other. Everyone's, quite happy to just talk. And that's what it's been like with a group of guys that I run with.
Yeah, and I know that you know Martin Lopez, who I spoke to for Running Tales a couple of weeks ago. And Martin was telling me that on one of his ultras, he bumped into somebody at the start who had basically the same name as him, came from the same place, and just had all these coincidences. And he ran the whole 50 or 60 miles or whatever it was with this same lad all the way through.
Yeah, he's a good guy, Martin is. But like, he's someone that I've met through talking through my Instagram account. So we haven't known each other that long now, but he's one of those people that you start talking to him and all of a sudden, you know, if you click with him, he's your best mate. Like, he came out on the Grand Union. He was in London. He drove home and dropped his family off and then played golf. And then he got changed in the car park, came straight down back to us, like just past Watford, ran, I don't know how many miles with us, then got dropped back off of his car, drove pretty much to the last checkpoint, and then ran up to meet us and then ran us into the last checkpoint. Like, he's just one of those kind of people, Martin is, where he's like, you click with him and he'll do anything for you. He's brilliant.
And I guess you say that's kind of symptomatic of the community.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Everyone's just out to help each other get to the finish line, no matter what it is.
Fantastic. So you got this one out of the way. I've got a feeling you're going to be doing it again. But is there any other events coming up for you next?
Yeah, so on the Grand Union side of things, hopefully I'll get through the ballot for next year, because I want to they do a canal slam, which is all three of them. There's 2 145s and 135 mile race, all on the canals. So that's next year's like plan of action, while I've got all this training for the flat stuff like in. And next year's the 30th Grand Union. So they're doing it from London to Birmingham, which will be nice because my wife's pregnant. We're due November, so it'll be really nice next year coming across the finish line to the little one. This year, however, I've never had to go at any like FKTs or fastest known times. And there's one that stood out to me for quite a while now, which is 135 miles. And there's me and a couple of friends that are going to go and have an attempt at that in August. I can't really say too much of what it is, because at the moment the FKT is quite a big one, as in terms of we don't really have to, if we want to go steady on it, we can. If I start telling people, then like someone will go and have a crack at it, because it's an absolutely beautiful route as well. Yeah, I've been trying to write a book. I'd say trying to. I've been writing a book sort of since last October-ish time, just putting all my thoughts and the journey through running so far, which is going to finish with this race, this FKT, and just something nice to run it with as many of my people that I run with. Like, we're just trying to run it all together.
Yeah, definitely. And as well as that, do you have any sort of plan? I mean, I don't think you're going to have any plans to do shorter runs. Maybe you'll get that marathon in at some point. But have you thought about things like some of these multi-day events or any of those sort of crazy challenges like that? Yeah,
there's I think it's called Deadwater. It's up in Scotland, run by I think it's Beyond Marathon do it. I keep looking at that every year, and it's a good multi-day event. It looks really hard. It's a long way. I can't remember how many miles it is completely, but yeah, there's a few of those. I'd like to start stepping it up into the bigger miles. It's just how long you're out for. After that, like, I can deal with like a weekend or so. But yeah, I think when you in the realms of 4 or 5 days out, I think it starts really eating into time and how much I can get away with.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the amount of training you have to do as well. I mean, I've done a couple of marathons, and the thing that sort of puts me off, and I know it's kind of small fry for you, is just the amount of training you have to do in the run up to it, around your job and so on. I'm obviously imagine you're doing a huge amount of training already, but it would be even more for those sort of events.
I'm really personally not. I find marathons harder than I do like going for the ultras, because in some ways the ultras as long as you keep moving, you cut off points and everything. I think marathons still hold this, that you're going for a pace, you're going for a time. Most people aren't just going to run a marathon, especially a race a marathon for just to run it. A lot of people who have been in and around running, if they're doing a marathon, they're going to put down a time. So the training and everything that comes with that is just so unappealing to me. Like, I see all these people like really setting their like training plans and blocks, and it's great. Like, I just don't have the mental, like, I know I'll get bored with it essentially.
So how do you train for the ultras that you do then? How does that work?
It's pretty much just go out and running and just enjoy the miles. So there's a couple of guys that I run with locally to me, and we usually go out for a good Sunday long run, which is 20 odd plus miles, and like the 3 or 4 of us will run together, and then I just try and get in as many miles through the week as I can, mostly on my own through the weeks. But yeah, train it out, and I do a lot of kettlebell stuff. I had to kind of stop and slow that down a bit up to the Grand Union, because I was sure that I was going to injure myself. But yeah, I've been using kettlebells quite a lot in my training, and found that they help so much, like with functional strength and whatnot. Training's, it's not like you structured. I'm going to go out and do like tonight's hill reps, tomorrow's like interval session. It's the training that we do. I mean, it's got to come at some point, but the training we do at the moment it's very much just keep it fun.
And when you're talking sort of the 20 miles at the weekend, is that kind of 20 miles, go out and run it? Or is that a bit like you're going to do in an ultra, a bit of walking, a bit of running, a bit of however you feel as you go around the next corner?
It's exactly that. So we take some food out with us, and, most of the time, if we're not on any time restraints, it's going to be, we just go out and just enjoy being out. If we see a new route that we've never been down before, we just, we'll go down it. But it's just to enjoy it, really. And I think that goes to show when new people start running with us, when we actually say, like, we're not bothered about pace, we're not bothered about that side of things. It's like, if you want to come and run with us, like, we will literally run at whatever pace. Like, we just go out and enjoy it. As long as everyone's smiling and have a good time, that is literally all we care about.
I think that's a really lovely way of running, and it does create that sort of community. My wife has a running club, and she's very much around being inclusive and getting everybody to go at their own pace. And if you want to go a bit faster, that's fine, but you got to loop back, and the party's at the back, sort of thing.
yeah, definitely that. It's always good when you can, because I find a lot of people, especially people who are new to the sport, I get a lot when I ask people to come and run with me, and they're like, "Oh, I can't keep up with you. I can't go as fast. I can't go as far as you." And it stops people coming to run with you. And then when they actually realise that, if they want to run at a 12-minute mile or a 13-minute mile, or they want to run fast and then have like a half-mile walk, so be it. Like, if that's what you want to do, like, that's what we will do. But then I found the running punks. They're like an online. They do a virtual like club run every Sunday. And they literally are exactly how me and my friends are with our running. It's, you go at your own pace. If you want to just go out and walk, you go out and walk. If you want to go out and do your hill reps and stuff, you go and do them. Like, everyone's behind you, everyone's backing you. But there's no place for people to be like, "Oh, you're not fast enough," or "You're not this." And it kind of keeps everyone just happy and on the same, mindset, and everyone's in the same sport and enjoying the same sport.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to move back, if that's okay, onto some of the sort of the talking and the mental health side of things. I mean, do you have any sort of future plans on that, to develop that?
Yeah. So last summer, we did a 24-hour park run at our local park run, and it was basically our door is open for it. Like, the door's open. There'll be a kettle on them. There'll be some food, whatever. Turn up if you want to turn up and walk the loop.
Which park run is that? Give it a shout out.
Cannock Chase park run. It's an absolutely brilliant park run, brilliant community and that around it. But yeah, we were like, okay, we'll start on the Saturday morning, 2 hours before parkrun. Then if anyone wants to join us and carry on, people know what we're doing. We were met first thing by a guy that I'd never met in real life. We'd just spoken briefly online. He'd been having some troubles at home. He turned up and ran, I think, 2 loops with us, and he just completely opened up and just chatted and whatnot. And then after that, I mean, me and my friend Dwayne, who we ran it all together, we were, I think the whole 24 hours we were only on our own for 1 loop. There were just people coming in and out. There were groups of people. Some people just wanted to come and run and just enjoy running, and just, you know, it was if you want to walk a loop, we'll walk a loop. If you want to skip a loop, we'll skip a loop. Like, there is literally whatever you want to do. And I think we ended up covering, in the 24 hours, we ended up covering 80 miles. But it was probably the easiest 80 miles my body has ever felt, because it was just so relaxed.
Yeah.
Like, some people came out just to have breakfast with us, and then we had pizza on the evening, and, you know, it was, people were just coming out and just chatting their like mental health issues that they had. But that was the whole idea, was for people to come out, people to talk, and just know that, I mean, even if you didn't want to talk, you could come and listen to other people's stories, and there was just a place for people to talk. So I think we're looking at going to do that again this year, and hopefully every year after. We got permission from one of the Cannock Chase park rangers to camp on site. So and they said they'd keep the toilets open and stuff for us. So if they keep to their word, we've got full, you know, amenities. We've got the toilets, we've got place to sleep and everything. So yeah, it was just, if people want to come out, then we're going to keep doing it.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. I mean, yeah, you have to keep an eye on your social media and that, and come and run a couple of laps, because that sounds
yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Anything else on the roadmap, as it were?
Just a kind of couple of FKTs. So like, I love running near water. So I've got like these ideas of, I'd love to run a lot of the riverways like around the UK, but some more of the lesser known ones. So there's some ideas going around, you know, running or seeing how many of the major river sources we can like tick off as such, and seeing how far we can go with those. I had one other DNF last year, which was at the Penthlyn Ultra up in North Wales on the Penthlyn Peninsula. I've probably not pronounced that right at all, but
I'm not going to be able
to. That was a 100-miler, and that was 3 weeks after my Grand Union attempt. Again, my wife was going mad at me, like, not to do it because of how soon it was and how injured I was. But I still gave it a crack. We got 65 miles in. I timed out on one of the checkpoints because the checkpoint guy decided to leave 5 minutes early.
No.
I was literally like the last person, but I was still in the race. And then if I'd made it there, I'd have had 7 hours to make it to the next checkpoint, which was like plenty of time. But yeah, I'm too honest for my own good. So I was just like, yeah, I'm out. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of unfinished business with that race. So that's a go next year. That's definitely going to be done next year. That's a beautiful race as well. Really tough, but yeah. And then I think after the Canal Slam next year, I'm going to start having a look at some more mountain running and try and go. Like, I like different terrain, and like I like to try a lot of different things. So I think from my flatter running this year and next year, I'd like to go and have a go at some mountain races.
How much is countryside and what you're running through part of what you enjoy about it all?
Yeah, it's a huge part. Road running for me is, I put my headphones on and I go road running to run fast, and you know, that's my training stuff, is like if I'm on the roads. But off on the trails and stuff, that's where, you know, half the time you can hear me whooping, hollering and screaming down the trails like a little kid. You can kind of find that childlike mind when you're out there. Like, you can actually go back to just what were simpler times. You know, nothing matters other than running down that single track trail through the woods. And we started taking a few friends out who had never been running on like proper single track, almost mountain bike trails, and to see the joy in their face, like, you know why you're running there, you know why you love running there. It is just brilliant, like being able to go back to that childlike kind of, everything's easy, just, you don't think about anything, just go and run. It's a huge part.
I was going to say, for one final question, I was going to sort of ask you what you would say to anybody else thinking of getting into running or ultra running and why they should do it. But I think you may have just answered that.
I think, yeah, that is, if you can put all the pace, if you just go out and just put your shoes on and just run to how you want to run, don't look at Strava, don't look at anything like that. Don't look at anyone telling that you have to run at a certain pace. Just lace your shoes up and go for a little walk, and then have a little jog in between, but just look around you, because most of the things that we miss, even just simple things like in everyday life that we take for granted or we don't even notice anymore, just how many different animals are around us all the time. And like this time of year is incredible, like the little baby ducks and everything that are out on the canals, or the young animals and stuff that are about. It's just amazing to see. The life that's around you all the time is just incredible. But to just go out and don't focus on any paces or on times. If you're starting to struggle, just have a little walk. Like, it's all better than sitting on the sofa or sitting there looking at other people doing, and a week's gone, another month's gone, and you still haven't done it. Just go and enjoy it, and just do whatever feels right for you. Nothing ever feels hard, like mentally hard. Nothing's ever a chore. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be able to be able to go out and run.
Ben, thank you very much. I think that's a lovely place to end.